Well, welcome everyone. This is Festival Focus. I'm very, very excited to be here with you. I'm Michelle Schumann, the Artistic Director of the Austin Chamber Music Center, and I'm here with you with Richard Stoltzman, the eminent Richard Stoltzman. Thank you so much, Richard, for being here with us to give us this interview. It's really exciting for our audiences to kind of get to know you before you come to Austin.
Well, thank you. Where am I exactly? Aren't I in some kind of cloud or something like that? I think
That's
this is
right.
internet, right?
I think you are in a cloud somewhere, but for all intents and purposes, you're in Austin right now. You're in the hearts and minds of Austinians. You have a personal connection to Austin, is that correct? Someone told me that your son lives in Austin, is that correct?
Not anymore, but he did go to the University of Texas at Austin. He worked on a doctorate there in jazz improvisation and the art of improvisation, and he was there for 4 years, and now he's teaching at the University of Illinois in Chicago.
Gotcha. So were you able to visit him when he was here in Austin very much?
Yes, I did. I played with the Austin Symphony a couple of times, and I played a piece that Kent Kennan, who was a composer and pedagogue in Austin, had arranged from a Prokofiev flute sonata.
All right.
So we did that there, and the Klezmatics. I played with the Klezmatics there in Austin, and I played down at a place called the Elephant Club or
Elephant Room. Yeah.
With Peter in some basement someplace, and then and I gave a few recitals there, but also I just came and pretended I was a grandfather. It was a little, you know, I am a grandfather, but I have to kind of gear myself up to crawling on the floor with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yeah, it's always, you use a different kind of muscles when you're a grandfather, don't you?
I do, and I tore the knee out of one of my jeans, and it's really it's great exercise, but wow.
Yeah, no kidding. We're really excited for having you come to play the Austin Chamber Music Festival for the first time. Our audiences are just really very, very excited, and I'm very excited to be able to play with you. I always love playing with new people, and I know that you play with a bazillion people, and there's something really magical about playing with someone for the first time, and you kind of get to know them on a level through playing with them that I think sometimes is a lot easier than having to get to know them through talking with them. And every player sort of has a different aesthetic in a way, and I always find it's very exciting to not know what to expect and then to really kind of grasp hold of what you're going to expect in maybe even the first 5 or 10 minutes. And I just wanted to ask you about your experiences with collaboration and what you think makes a really great collaboration, or what you think makes really great chamber music.
Listening. That's what makes for a great collaboration.
Yeah.
Simple as.
Yeah, it is that simple, and I think in that listening, it allows us to just kind of respond in a way that is very, very special. And I think that that's what I love about that too, is that in that listening, again, you never know what to expect from someone, that you can have this experience of spontaneity through that listening.
Listening and breathing.
Well, and I love the program that we're doing, with the first half being kind of these classical stalwart pieces with the Brahms F minor sonata. You know, I feel like Brahms almost brought his most intimate self to those clarinet pieces. He had such a close connection to the clarinet, and late on in life, I find that it's some of his most intimate writing.
Well, yes, although when you tell performers to play Allegro appassionato, you're not really asking about intimacy. You're asking about how much of your life is invested in this piece. And so my feeling is that Brahms, the intimacy comes from the fact that it's just two people working on the music. But I think the intimacy in these pieces involves the involves really the whole audience. in that kind of intimacy. And the fact that Brahms was retired and really had decided that he didn't have any more music in him to write, and then to come to this piece, Opus 120, which is almost the last thing he wrote, and find a kind of rejuvenation through the sound of one person, this clarinetist.
Gesundheit.
I think it must be pollen season. So I think, Richard Millfelt really inspired Brahms in the way that a voice can inspire you or give you an intimate knowledge. This one thing I always find about emails. People sending emails and trying to communicate that way. And oftentimes they'll either underscore words or put exclamation marks on the words or do any, or some kind of funny faces or something in order to try to convey the tone of voice or the tone of expression. And I think what brought Brahms to write this music was the realization that he had found a tone, literally a tone, from this man, Richard Millfelt, that could express, I guess you'd say, intimate feelings that he had about music that he'd never done before.
Right, right. It's an amazing story, and there's something so incredible about the music to be able to explore it in that way. And we'll be playing Bach as well. And I kind of love that we're doing Bach for clarinet and piano. It's kind of perfect because clarinet is a relatively modern instrument. At least it's not a Baroque instrument. And the piano, of course, is the modern rendition of the harpsichord. So I think it's really amazing to actually explore both of those kind of modern timbres with this Baroque music. How do you approach Bach?
Oh, I was going to ask you that.
Well, I approach...
You're playing on the piano.
Yes, I am. I approach Bach with I think a mixed sentiment, with adhering to the idea of motoric rhythm in what you get from the Baroque era. And when when I'm playing on the piano, I think a lot about Baroque orchestras. Not so much harpsichord, but I think more about the fullness sound of the Baroque orchestra. And again, the idea that rhythm is so important in doing this and feeling this sense of pulse and feeling this sense of regularity. And what I know of Bach so much are the dance suites too. And I think that the dance suites really play into anything else that he wrote, so in the sonatas. So I feel like Bach's music dances at all times, and it's up to us to kind of bring that out. And yet I love playing Bach on the piano. I think Bach would have loved Bach on the piano. And so to be able to bring out, well, I guess a modern sensibility in terms of dynamic shaping, and the idea of a singing line is how I like to approach Bach.
That sounds great. I think we'll probably get along.
Good. That was a test, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. But I've played Bach with many people, and so it's always an illumination for me to find out how this music, which is so old, I mean, 300 years old? Is it 300?
Yes, we're looking, yeah.
Yeah, how people now rejuvenate it or bring it back to life.
Right.
So I found, for instance, I had a chance to do a few performances with Keith Jarrett, and the way he played Bach was a great deal about what you were saying, the rhythmic feeling of the pulse, but also a sense of improvisation, in the real sense of like making it up.
Right.
And he would embellish things all the time, and it made me conscious of the fact that Bach was probably one of the greatest improvisers of his day.
Yeah,
and we don't improvise anymore.
Right. Right. It's sort of like we do one or the other. We read or we play by ear, or we're told that we have to do one or the other. And I don't think that serves young musicians at all. I think it's the integration of that, the spontaneity of music that can be occurred when we improvise. But then you bring that idea into classical music, it's a living art form. It's not just meant to be a reiteration of what's on that page.
Yeah, I think the problem for us is that we have grown naturally to respect the great music, and respect it to the point of to almost holy. So you can't touch it. You just have to be so respectful of the music. And yet, if you had the chance to be alive in the era where the music was written, you wouldn't feel that way at all. And I'm sure that when Brahms and Richard Mühlfeld were touring around together, I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't like improvisation things happening in the midst of the piece. In fact, do you remember the letter that Brahms wrote to Clara Schumann saying that he'd written these two pieces? Opus 120, he said, I wrote, very modestly, I wrote a couple of pieces for the clarinetists that I really have enjoyed playing with. One's, what did he say? He said if you just improvise a little bit in F minor and E flat major, that's those two pieces. I mean, of course, you'd have to be some hell of an improviser to come up with Brahms sonatas, but he was really, I think, trying to say that although the music comes from the heart, it also comes from the awakening of the creator's spirit for him.
Right. I was listening to a classical podcast the other day, and I was so irritated because the person who was talking, kind of hosting, he was talking about a recent performance of Mahler 1. And he was talking about how at the end, he was very dissatisfied by this performance because at the end, the conductor decided to do a different kind of a cello-rondo than Mahler had indicated in the score. And he thought that this was just blasphemous. And for me, my guess is that Mahler, as a composer and as a conductor, I bet every time he performed that piece and conducted that piece, it was different every single time, and probably never exactly like the score. And I think that yes, we want to understand the idea of reverence to the score and going to the score first for all of our, let's say, answers in a way. But I know that composers themselves had different interpretations of their own works. And
yes.
And I think that's how we live through the music. It's not that we have to play as Bach would have played, as if we could know, as if we could know what Brahms did. But it's up to us to explore how that might have been, but then to truly embody the music for a modern time.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure that, as you say, Brahms, Mozart, all the holy composers that we think of played their music differently each time they played it. It's no question.
Right. So it always kills me when people get irritated by this or that by people making interpretive choices. I mean, yes, not everyone is going to enjoy the interpretive choices that one makes, but that doesn't make it wrong. And I think it's up to us as artists and performers to always explore as many of those choices as possible, because we never know what's going to work the best, and nothing works the best. Everything is for a time and a place, I think.
Yeah, I think also we have to let our audiences in on what's going on. I mean, I feel the audience even the educated audiences, I mean, they know that we're reading music, and they may even know backgrounds about the composers and so forth. But I think as performers, we are able to grapple with the form and the expression of the music the best. And we do that by practicing and working with the other people we're going to be working with to figure out how to get the audience involved in the expression of the piece, and by that I mean also the understanding of the form, to know when something is returning, to know when something is varied, and how, not to know necessarily intellectually, but to feel it. Right. That's where the live experience becomes priceless, because you are hearing something literally for the first time, even if it's a piece that you have on record.
Yeah, I mean, it's always really exciting, and when the audience can be a part of that, they have such a better experience with that, rather than this idea that they're meant to sit there and just have music wash over their heads. I think it's really important that they be involved as listeners, because it's a better experience for them, and ultimately it's a better experience for us as performers too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And then the second half of the program is going to be an all-American program. Again, I think what's great about our instruments combined is that the literature is there for both of our instruments. We've got classical music that was written beautifully for our instruments, but then it takes on jazz quite easily and quite beautifully with Gershwin. And you play quite a bit of klezmer music. Do you play jazz as well?
You know, I think jazz is a term that is used as a noun to name things, but I think it's more of a it's like more like a verb. I think to play jazz, I think it's more, you should say jazz sort of infuses the music that I'm playing. And so my sort of liberal sense of jazz is that it is it combines sort of a gesture, melodically, with an awareness of the harmonies over which the gesture is being played, and a sense of the line, the gesture being rhythmically infused with feeling. Does that make sense to you? So I think I would like to play everything like jazz, or I would like to play everything jazz infused, or with that sense of improvisation.
Well, it's like what you were saying about the Bach.
Yeah, I guess in sort of, if you said, well, do you play Baroque music? Well, no, I don't play Baroque music. Or, you know, it's sort of like, well, that's a name of something, but you play the music in such a way that it's alive. And so, and with jazz, I think you play music in such a way that it is seemingly made up, to the listener. And so I guess that in that sense, you know, I'm a jazz person, except I'm playing Brahms. But on the other hand, we're going to be playing. What are we playing? We're playing Gershwin and Burns.
We're not doing Bernstein, but we're doing the Gershwin preludes, and then the Gershwin piece that is from Porgy and Bess, maybe, or the compilation piece. But you're also doing Steve Reich's New York Counterpoint, which is a fantastic piece of music.
Yeah, but that's a piece that always gave me a little bit of trouble when I was working on it at first, because Steve doesn't put allegro appassionato on his music, and he doesn't even really put any kind of literal emotional cue to the performer. Yeah. And in my younger days, I always thought that, like the word espressivo, meant, of course, be expressive, and Brahms writes espressivo all over the place. And therefore, it gave me a chance to egotistically show my musicianship. And when I got this piece from Steve, which doesn't say espressivo, doesn't say anything except play at this tempo for 11 minutes. Right. And I felt like, well, then I'm out of the piece, because I'm a musician and I want to express. Yeah. It was a long time coming, but I finally realized Steve was right, that the expression in this piece is not of a kind where you're letting out your emotions through the music, but rather that you're expressing the composer's intent, which is a kind of almost purified respect for the combination of counterpoint that brings a dance feeling to something. So it's sort of like Bach, but it's a little more daunting, because he expects the performer to really purify himself and not add his or her own sort of personal nuances. And when I was working on this piece with him, I remember him really admonishing me whenever I gave a little tenuto to a note, or a little extra accent, or say the 6th or 7th time around playing that particular group of notes, I slightly phrased it differently. And his reaction was, don't change anything. And I felt like, well, am I supposed to be a robot? But no, it wasn't that I was supposed to be a robot. It was just that the music itself, as it accumulates its density and begins to grow into this really overwhelming kind of experience, can do so only with this sort of purity of intent, so that this sort of abstract sense of counterpoint is recognized as very, very strong emotion.
Yeah. Well, I think in that way it's very maybe similar to gamelan, how these parts fit into one another. And if one person in a gamelan is being expressive, then it throws off the machine in a way. And I think that comes from this sense, maybe even a Buddhistic sense of mantra, of the kind of regularity. And if you can get into that idea of mantra without inflection, you can get to a transcendent place with that. And I think that's what a lot of that movement is all about. So, and it can be difficult as a performer when you're expected to play espressivo and to show your own personality through the music at times. But it's I can't wait to hear you play that piece, because it's a great piece, and to know that you've come to this like incredible understanding of it that I think a lot of people probably don't have of that piece.
Well, yeah, I probably played that piece almost more than any piece, hundreds of times. I remember first time I played it, I said, that's it, I'll never play this again. Little did I know I was going to be literally playing it. You know, he wrote it for me in 1985, 95, 2005. So like, what, we got 27 years or something like that?
Yeah. Well,
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's really exciting for us and really exciting for Austin audiences to be able to hear that. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. It's been really great speaking with you, and I'm really excited to play with you and to host. Richard, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Okay.
It was just a pleasure.
Sure.
All right.
Thanks, Michelle.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.